All right, it looks like we have everyone in here now. So welcome everyone. My name is Erin. I am the Student Recruitment Officer for UBC Engineering. I'd like to start by taking the time to recognize that I work at the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam speaking people. And I'd like to recognize the many owners and caretakers of the land that you may be joining us from today. So the topic of today's session is all about second year placement at UBC. We are going to be focusing specifically on second year placement at the Vancouver campus. And the reason for that is that placement at the Okanagan campus is not competitive. So if you're admitted to the Okanagan campus at the end of your first year, you'll get to choose from any of those 4 programs to go into for your second year. And there is no competitive aspect to that. But if you know that there is a competitive aspect at the Vancouver campus, that's why we want to host this session, just to make sure that you have more information about that, what to look forward to in first year, get your questions answered, and hear from some of our current students with me today. So we are going to get started with some of the questions you submitted in advance, but if you have additional questions, you're welcome to use the chat to ask those questions that we will be able to answer today. As mentioned, I'm joined by 2 current students. I have Heron and Martin, who will be sharing how they decided kind of what programs they were going to go into and share a little bit more about the placement process from their perspective. So Heron, I'll get you to go first.
Hi, I'm Heron, and I am third-year student at UBC Vancouver Manufacturing Engineering.
Perfect. And Martin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Martin. My pronouns are he, him, and I just finished my second year. So going on to third year in chemical engineering in the process option.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here today. So to begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about the general placement process. So as you likely know, UBC Engineering has what we call a foundational first year. You'll be taking several classes like math, physics, chemistry. You take a coding course, you take English. And the purpose of these classes are to ensure that you really have strong foundations in all of your sciences and communication areas before you start to specialize within engineering. One of the other classes that you'll take in first year is called AppSci 100 and AppSci 101. Those are both introduction to engineering courses where you'll learn more about all of the different disciplines that we offer through various projects that you'll work on, things like the cardboard chair, there's an autonomous claw, there's a water harvesting system. And every week you'll have presentations from all of the different disciplines that we have at UBC Vancouver. We have 14 different disciplines. Many of them may also be very related. So Karen's in manufacturing engineering, which has a lot of courses from like mechanical engineering as well as materials engineering, which are 2 other options as well. So there's lots of different kind of ways that you can still kind of get the same sorts of experience by being in different programs. And so that's one of the things that we do encourage you to kind of check out. In your first year, you'll be able to explore all of those different options to you through the AppSci 100 and 101 class, as well as by attending info sessions that each of those programs are going to offer. We have an open house every fall that you can attend to check out. There's panels hosted by each of the programs sometimes. So just all of those different events, I really encourage you to kind of take advantage of them to check it out. Now, at the end of your first year, so for many of you that are coming into first year, this will be a ways away from you, almost like a year from now. If you're going into second year, then this is right now for you. But typically by May 15th is the deadline for you to rank all of your programs, submit a personal statement that your first choice program will look at. And the programs will primarily take into consideration all of the grades from your first year courses. Programs like engineering physics may also require an additional step like an interview process, but mostly what they're looking at is your first year grades and your personal statement for your first choice program. So Heron, you're in manufacturing engineering. Could you tell us a little bit more about what manufacturing engineering is?
Thank you for your question. Manufacturing engineering is a combination of mechanical engineering and materials engineering, as well as computer engineering. And its main establishment is in mechanical engineering. However, We also have computer programming courses, when mechanical engineering students do not have any computer programming courses except for mechatronics. And we also have a more detailed course on thermomechanics and thermodynamics, which is with the materials engineering students. We have a lot of same classes with material engineering students and mechanical engineering students.
And like the focus of manufacturing engineering is really about like sustainable manufacturing processes and making just everything in our world that's manufactured better process to kind of be created. Is that right?
Yeah, we learned different types of machines that are used for manufacturing, such as 3D printer and ejection molding, and also those very new Industry 4.0 style programming machines to do things for us.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing all of that info. Martin, can you explain a little bit about what chemical engineering is?
In my biased opinion, I think that process engineering is the most interesting one, but objectively, I would say that process engineering is the study of modifying, designing, and creating chemical processes in order to invent a variety of products using various types of chemicals. So that's usually done in many various manufacturing plants. So here in the chemical and biological engineering department, we have two options. One, which is the process engineering option, which is more closely related with usual plant manufacturing and processing. And then we have bioprocess engineering, which leans more towards pharmaceuticals and genetic engineering. So definitely a lot of flexibility within that. So as like a chemical engineering student, you would take courses such as thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, but then you also specialize more into specific process design. So for example, process control and dynamics, we'll learn how to learn about control valves, which involve a lot of controlling the processing and mass flow rates of those substances. So that's a glimpse into what process engineering is.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. So Huron, back to you. Manufacturing engineering isn't what a lot of students would normally consider as one of the main like types of engineering. Can you talk about what you did throughout your first year to learn more about it and ultimately help you decide that that was the program that you wanted?
Thank you for your question. In first year, we were taught how each of the different programs work, and I was really grateful that we had the teachers and professors from all of the different departments to come into one of our classes and have a whole class just to talk about their program. And that was really inspirational for us because we got to know the grade requirement and the focus classes such as physics or programming, what kind of focus stuff, focus courses that they will have in the upper years. And the course was called AppSci 100. And yeah, that was the course that really helped me find my decision.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So another question just popped into the chat. I am going to add a link for everyone. So this is linked to our academic services website that has really all of the kind of like academic specific questions that you may have about the second year placement process. So you can click on that link to see there's a video about second year placement. There's lots of resources available there. There's something called the historical GPA, historical 4-year GPA for entrance into each of the programs. So you can kind of see over the past 4 years where students getting into each of those programs, what their GPA has been at the end of first year. So there's a lot more resources there. But the question in the chat is, if I don't get my first choice, can I try again another year? So what I will say is that the majority of students get one of their top choices. What that means is that typically about 90% of our students get one of their top 3 choices that they've listed on their placement form. What I will say to that is, as as Huron mentioned, like her program is really using manufacturing engineering, combining computer engineering, combining mechanical engineering, combining materials engineering. So going into any one of those programs could also ultimately lead you to being in a very similar work field when you graduate. There's all of those different aspects. Obviously, manufacturing engineering is a little bit more specialized in terms of how you're combining all of those pieces. But if that was your real goal, to work in manufacturing engineering once you graduated, you do have different options to kind of get there. And that's really what we encourage students to try and explore, that there are lots of different ways to kind of get to that final work field that you're interested in. So we do encourage you to do that. If ultimately you are placed into a program that you are not interested in, there's a couple of different pieces that you can do. There is a reconsideration form. So if you have any extenuating circumstances that you need to share with us that may have affected your first year performance, you are welcome to do that. The other process then is the interdepartmental transfer. So an interdepartmental transfer is possible to go through after the end of your second year. If you've done much better in that second year and you have better grades to get into your program, then you can be considered for that. It is based on space available in that program. So again, it is not necessarily a guarantee that you can get into that program. But what I want to mention again is that so many of our programs are so interdisciplinary that there are several options that will still lead to a lot of the same foundation, being able to work in the same sort of field as well. So it's really something to consider when you're picking those programs as well. All right, Martin, I'm going to jump into the next question that I have for you. So can you give any additional advice on other things that students coming into our first year program can do to find out more about the program that they're interested in, especially if maybe they aren't sure where to start or what program it is that they want to go into?
Yes, of course. I think that trying to attend events that are hosted specifically for program disciplines, especially for the engineering open house, for example, would be great. I also think that other events like the club room crawl would also be a good idea. It gives you an insight into what each program is about and how students in those programs are finding it as well. And I also just recommend like maybe more so like general research, finding out like on each website, like what each program is about and determining whether it fully aligns with your interests. Also checking with like whether you would even enjoy the courses that are in the schedule for each program as well. I know I definitely did that comparing for each program. So I definitely say to take those factors into consideration.
Awesome, thank you. And I know that I have two upper year students with me today to chat with all of you. Upper year students are so happy to talk to our first year students and to be like, oh, you should choose my program. It's the best because of this, or tell them more about what that program looks like. So, you have two students here to answer some of those questions today, but all of our students are always so happy to share more about kind of why they chose their program and why they like it. Thanks so much. There's another question in the chat asking for what that conversion scale would be like if you are transferring into UBC Engineering. So I'm going to add a link to the chat right now that is a GPA conversion scale. That will convert your 4.33 GPA kind of scale into our percentage, which is what we use at UBC. It does say that that one is specifically for the Okanagan campus, but it is the same for UBC, so you can get a sense of what that conversion scale looks like. The next question I see is, what is the most competitive or common engineering disciplines chosen at UBC? So that's a great question. There's kind of two answers to that. So one is regarding what is the most competitive programs. And those ones are going to be typically the ones that have a smaller number of seats. So engineering physics is typically one of the most competitive. It does require an interview as well. The other two most competitive that you'll see are likely computer engineering and mechanical engineering. For common engineering disciplines, those ones tend to be our larger programs. So some of our programs are quite large. Our electrical engineering program is quite large. Our mechanical engineering program is quite large. Those are probably the two biggest, I think. Chemical is still pretty decent size as well. So we accept about 1,000 students into our first year program, and then all of those students go into their second year disciplines, which can range anywhere in size from about 60 students on the smaller side to up to 200 students on the larger side. So a little bit of a range in terms of common just being the most seats available typically. So Martin, another question to you. So UBC Engineering, all of the students I talk to, students are really going to find a close-knit community within their department or program. Can you share any of the ways that you've gotten to know any of the other students in chemical engineering? Like, have you gotten involved in your department club or anything else that exists to really meet other students in your program?
Yeah, I have. So I'm the last year I was the second year representative for Chibi Council, and from there I was able to connect with a lot of people in the Chibi department. So including the council members, but also with a lot of students in my year. So that was really fun. I also was able to connect even online, like through homework help with other students, helping each other with homework. And also a lot of events. The Chibi department hosts a lot of events, and I also recommend attending that. They're a great way to socialize and meet people in your department. So anytime you have the time to attend a department event, especially from Chibi, I would definitely recommend attending.
Awesome. Yeah, I always see Chibi hosting so many events, so that's awesome. I am going to add a link to the chat. That is our UBC Engineering Ambassador page. So you can actually start a chat with our students. Heron and Martin are both students, part of the UBC Engineering Ambassador program. So if you want to chat more with them after today, this is also a great way to kind of start a conversation with them. But you can search for students in other programs. If there's a program that you're specifically looking for more interest about that's not here today, I also encourage you to search out the program or department website. Looking at the curriculum of courses, like Martin mentioned earlier, is really a great way to decipher what you're going to learn in one program versus the other. So really looking through what courses you would take in each of those programs. Typically, the best spot to find those are on the program websites, but you can also find that in the UBC academic calendar as well. So those are just some of the ways to kind of learn a little bit more and decipher between programs. There's never going to be one best option. It's always going to be whatever the best fit is for you. So whatever kind of stands out the most to you, that is your interest. All right. So Heron, thinking back to, joining manufacturing engineering and your experience in there so far, what do you think makes it such a unique program, or what do you love most about it? Or maybe what surprised you most about it that you didn't expect to see in it coming into the program?
Thank you for your question. The best part about manufacturing engineering is that the class size is very small. Our classes are usually around 45 people for the manufacturing titled MANU courses. There's usually 45 people maximum. And some courses that we do take with materials engineering students, and those classes are usually about 100 students maximum. So our class sizes never reach more than 120. And that might sound like not a big deal or anything, but once you go to manufacturing engineering, you'll know the difference. It's actually a very, very big advantage because your department head knows you by your name, and the teachers will know you by your name, and they call you by your name, and it's a good experience. And it's a lot closer relationship between you and the teacher.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So there's a few more questions in the chat that I'll try and get to before we wrap up today. So one question is, some of us partially completed the first year engineering transfer program. So is it wise to retake the entire program or only retake the remaining courses for transfer? So I can't necessarily speak exactly to your situation. You are welcome to send me an email to further elaborate so I can better help advise you. What I think you're asking is that if you're coming into our first year program as a transfer student, you have some transfer credit. Should you do all of the courses again, or should you keep that transfer credit that you have and just take the courses that you're missing? So if that is what you're asking, then yeah, typically if you've done that course level at a university or post-secondary level already, you don't need to retake that course. In your first year at UBC, if you're doing that kind of modified first year program. You would take any courses that you're still deficient in, and then you can still talk with an advisor about what other courses you may be able to take. So if you wanted to do like some of your second year math or a stats course, that potentially might be a good option for you. I would not recommend doing that if you were planning to go into mechanical engineering because of their Mech 2 program. But for most of our other programs, you could definitely take that second year math or stats to kind of get that out of the way, and then you're lightening your second year course load as well. So that's an option. If that's not what you're asking, then you're welcome to send me an email so that I can further understand what you're asking and understand your personal situation to help answer that as well. There's another question about the number of people in computer engineering each year. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I will try and see if I can find that number quickly. I know that I have it somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly where it's saved. So let me have a quick look at that for you, and I will see if I can find that. While I move on to the next question, does transfer credit such as AP or a credit for a single class from another post-secondary institution contribute to GPA? So when we're talking about GPA, we're looking at what you've done at UBC typically, or if you're transferring in what that whole admission average would be. But typically we're looking for that year that you've done at UBC. The last question I see here is there a definite number of seats or a certain percentage of the student population accepted into each discipline? So typically there's a rough number of seats that we expect for students, a rough number of the number of students that are going to get into that program. And then the way that those GPAs are determined is really based on the popularity of that program in that year. So we're just looking through and we're looking at these students with these top GPAs and these great personal statements have selected this program, so we're going to put them in there. And we kind of just go down the list in terms of placing students. Again, there's a video that I've linked to on the second year placement site. I will link that again in case anyone joined us late. But there's a video there that explains that whole process. There's a lot more information there in terms of that, those averages and things like that as well. So I'll link that again. So before we do wrap up today, I always love to ask if there's a piece of advice that each of you could share, as if you were giving that advice to your kind of grade 12 self or first year self of what would you recommend just in general of coming into UBC engineering. What do you wish someone may have told you? Martin, I'll get you to go first.
I think time management is just like so crucial for like coming into first year engineering. Like I know like it's used like pretty vaguely, but like I have found like very specific techniques for like how to manage my time. Especially in terms of because it is definitely like depending on what you did in high school, it can still be a huge jump in terms of adjusting to the amount of workload, especially for first year engineering. So trying to get like homework assignments done efficiently, trying to work on group projects efficiently because they'll can also be very time consuming. One time management technique that I would recommend, since we're a bit short on time, would be like tracking your time because you're taking a huge course load, usually about 7 classes one semester or 6 a second. Those can help you like allocate your time accordingly to make sure you're not spending disproportionate amount of time on one class. So you can like spread your time out evenly to make sure you're giving equal similar amounts of time for all of your classes.
Awesome, thank you. That's definitely great advice to consider going forward and something that I get asked about all the time. So thanks for sharing. And Heron, what would you say?
I would say one of the advices I would say would be accept your UBC offer just as soon as possible. Because I struggled a lot. I stressed out a lot about accepting which offer. And now I look back, I realize that I shouldn't have stressed out at all. UBC is the best option. So just accept your offer as soon as possible because there are many, many reasons to be at UBC Engineering, but I'm very, very grateful that I chose to be in UBC Engineering because the weather here is really, really nice. And that, again, that might sound like it's no big deal. It is a big deal. It's actually a really, really big advantage because the weather here is really, really nice and you don't have to wear you will not get too hot during the summer and not too cold in the winter, and you can walk to school without sweating or freezing. It's great. The weather is good. The environment is really good. The
Awesome.
atmosphere just makes everything very cheerful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. So hopefully that helps answer everyone's questions today. I want to say a huge, huge, huge thank you to Heron and Martin for sharing their experiences with us today. I really enjoyed getting to learn more about everything that you had to share about the selection process that you went through in order to decide what program was right for you, in all of your student experiences that you've been a part of, to share for incoming students of how they can kind of think about choosing their program when the time comes. I hope that this session was able to give you all a bit of insight into what the second year placement process is like. You're welcome to continue to ask questions. If you've been admitted, you've been invited to the UBC Engineering Discord group already, so you're welcome to ask questions in there. I do monitor the help desk section that has the forum where you can ask questions, so I do always check that out. Otherwise, you're always welcome to send me an email at aaron.fair@ubc.ca. You should have gotten an email reminder for this session, but I'll add my email into the chat as well. Yes, there is a Discord for any student that has been admitted. So if you have been admitted to UBC Engineering at the Vancouver campus, you would have received an email with a link to that Discord group. So you're welcome to join that if you'd like. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Huge thank you to Martin and Heron. Thank you again so much for being part of the session. I could not do these without students like you to share your experiences. So thank you so much to both of you, and to everyone else, have a great evening, and I hope to see you on campus soon.